The objective of this lesson is to multiply tenths by tenths. In previous lessons, students used hundredths grids to multiply whole numbers by up to hundredths. They have also learned that 5/10 is the same as half. In today's lesson, the students will move on to multiplying a decimal to the tenths by another decimal to the tenths using the hundredths grid. Let's begin with the first problem. Tyler's mom made 4 pounds of brownies and sent half of them to school for Tyler's birthday treat. How much did Tyler take to school? The equation for this situation would be half, or 5/10 of the 4 pans equals 2 pans were brought to school. The product, 2 pans, is smaller than the initial amount of 4. Now, change the problem so that Tyler's mom has only half a pan of brownies. The expression to represent the problem is half of half, or 5/10 of 5/10. The first factor represents the part Tyler is taking to school, and the second factor represents the half a pan of brownies his mom had. Let's solve this problem visually using the hundredths grid. Write 5/10 to the left of the hundredths grid. This amount represents the part that Tyler took to school. Write 5/10 on top of the hundredths grid. This amount represents the half a pan, or 5/10 of a pan, of brownies that Mom had to start with. With one color, shade the first 5 columns to represent the 5/10, or half a pan of brownies Mom had. With a different color, shade 5/10 rows to represent the 5/10, or half that Tyler took to school. The product of the 2 decimals is represented where the 2 colors overlap. The product is 25 hundredths. Tyler took 25 hundredths of a pan of brownies. Let's try another problem. Mrs. Mills from Stewart Design is making a throw pillow for a customer. She has a piece of fabric that is 4/10 yard. She uses 2/10 of the 4/10 for the pillow. How much fabric is she using in yards? The expression to best represent this problem is 2/10 of the 4/10, or 2/10 times 4/10. Write 2/10 on the left side of the hundredths grid to represent the amount of fabric she uses, and 4/10 along the top to represent the amount of fabric she started with. Shade in the 4/10 or 4 columns. Using a different color, shade in the 2/10 or 2 rows. The product is represented where the 2 colors overlap. Mrs. Mills used 8/100 yard of fabric. Let's look at the decimal product chart. Today's lesson had tenths multiplied by tenths. This is represented in the 4th row of the decimal product chart. All of the products were in the hundredths. Therefore, a tenth multiplied by a tenth will give a product to the hundredths. The objective of this lesson was to multiply tenths by tenths. We met this objective by using the hundredths grid to visually represent the multiplication of tenths by tenths in real-world problems, and compared our answer on the decimal product chart.